Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Georgia MAGA on Tommy Time. Well, before we get too far down the road today, got to call attention to the colors. We're flying today. For those of you who are college football fans, you probably not lost on the fact that the Georgia Bulldogs had a pretty big win down in Athens, which I'm actually just about 20 minutes from downtown where I live here in North Georgia. And we are pretty happy folks around here with regard to the Bulldogs and that whole outcome. I guess there's a few probably looking in and won't share it, but as one of their announcers down there, who I fortunately had the opportunity to meet finally here recently, Hondo Williams said a few years ago during the national championships run, these are the good old days. And I've been a Bulldog fan since I was 10 years old, which was 45 years ago. So, and those were some pretty good days too. Those were the Herschel Walker days, and we won a championship back then. But even as good as those were, Kirby Smart's taking us to an entirely new level. But anyway, I'm getting off track. With regard to this channel and my last video, which was all about the internecine combat among conservatives right now, particularly Tucker Carlson and Mark Levin and Megyn Kelly, and the whole issue of anti-Semitism and support for Israel, Zionism, and the rest. Saw a couple of things over the weekend, and so I wanted to weigh in a little bit in reaction to and building on what I had written and said last week. The problem beyond just the problematic nature of how Tucker Carlson conducted his interview with the Fuentes fella, who is a Marxist, I mean, not a Marxist, I keep saying that when I mean Stalinist, who is a avowed Stalinist, said he was a fan of Stalin, so I don't know how you escape that one. Pro-Hitler, pro-Nazi, anti-Semitic, has attacked, obviously, the vice president's wife with a racial slur. Obviously, even I'd not heard of this guy before the interview broke, and have, beyond the clips that have been provided by people who have been doing deep dives on YouTube on this since, that is the amount of my exposure to him. And as I said last week, I've seen enough to know that beyond the fact that he might just be doing this for clicks, that he's just not a good guy. And even if that is the only reason he's doing it for, not a good guy. That by definition makes you a very excuse me, a questionable person that you're willing to profit on and trade in that sort of talk, rhetoric, whatever. So, but getting back to the Tucker, Megyn Kelly, Mark Levin angle of this. I first want to say, for someone who has great respect for Mark Levin, have read a lot of his books, have been listening to his show for at least a solid decade, maybe longer. And with all due respect to him, and I have tremendous respect for him, I don't think, at least not yet in my eyes, my mind can be changed, but I don't think yet that Megyn Kelly is proven to be the villain that he seems to think she is. She's made mistakes, there is no question. She gave Tucker a total and inexcusable pass. Well, no, it wasn't. So she was just down here. I live also not very far from North Atlanta, and she was just down here on her tour. But it was in New York, I think, that she had Tucker on her tour sometime after all of this first erupted. And she did, for all of the criticism of Tucker not pressing Fuentes, when she had the opportunity to press Tucker, she didn't press him. So she's definitely made mistakes. And she made another mistake when she attacked Mark Levin. I heard that. Unlike these guys, and I think part of the problem here is that Levin, he's got other things to do. He does a 3-hour radio show every day. He doesn't listen to everything Megyn Kelly says, vice versa. Okay. So that said, Megyn Kelly, by taking a few clips of Mark Levin, which is what she did last week, and saying, hey, you're going to get some of us killed by throwing around stuff like neo-Nazi. Well, you need to take what Mark Levin said in the entire context. When Levin is talking about neo-Nazis and reprobates and just lowlifes and all the other colorful language that he uses on his show, he's not talking about individuals per se, at least certainly not. I know he wasn't in the terms of Megyn Kelly. He's talking about those that anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism and jihadism and Marxism and all of the bad isms, communism, to some degree liberalism appeals to. That's what he's talking about. That's who he's talking about. He's not saying, Megyn Kelly, at least not yet, you're a reprobate. Megyn Kelly, you're a neo-Nazi. Megyn Kelly, you're a Stalinist. He's not saying that. Now, that may not be necessarily true about Tucker Carlson at this stage, because I know that he is very angered by Carlson, in his view, having attacked, and I don't think it's beyond much question at this point, attacked his stepson and maybe some other members of his family, but at least his stepson, from what I understand. You can't base your, or you shouldn't, to be successful, your movement on personalities. But to a large degree, unfortunately, that a lot of that's been done with Trump. That's one of the big fears that some of us had about Trump from the start. That it was more about the man, not about the principles. And the principles is ultimately is what's going to win. It's not going to be any individual person. The people are going to, one way or the other, ultimately let you down. We're all fallible. We're not perfect. We're going to make mistakes. Or we're just going to flat out do things that are wrong, which I think that, frankly, Tucker Carlson did last week in his video in response to Mark Levin. He essentially made morally equivalent the Israeli war to defend themselves against Hamas with the Holocaust, with the genocide. He called it the same thing. He said that Israelis and Mark Levin were and Mark Levin was in support of killing folks, killing Hamas, killing Palestinians. That's really what he meant. Killing Palestinians out of collective guilt, just because they. I mean, he's calling it racism, is what he's calling it, without saying it flat out, and it's just a lie. And it's just not only is it just a lie, it's a complete misreading. It is a perversion of history. The Germans tried to exterminate the Jews. The Israelis are not trying to exterminate the Palestinians. They are trying to eliminate Hamas, a political movement which has sworn its objective as being the elimination of the state of Israel. These are two entirely different things, and to equate them is utterly intellectually dishonest. So that was really the main point I wanted to respond to insofar as the Tucker video. There was this item that popped up with J.D. Vance going after some, I think, you would say, of course, this person has far more followers at this point than I do, but what would certainly be considered from the vice president standpoint, a marginal personality who had criticized Tucker's son, who works for him in his office. His name is Buckley Carlson. I think he is his deputy press secretary, from what I understand. And Carlson decides to engage this person and gets into a back and forth, it sounds like. I can understand you wanting to defend as a matter of fact, it's admirable that he wants to defend a staff person, but this is the proverbial punching down. You're the vice president of the United States. In the scheme of things, somebody with an X handle with 50,000 people subscribed who may or may not at any given time be seeing some or any of what they're producing as far as content should be of zero concern to you, and even less, if less than zero, in terms of far in the negative range in terms of time spent. So, unfortunately, I think some of that is motivated by the allegiance of the vice president to Tucker Carlson, because it is no, as I said in my column last week, it is no secret that they are very good friends, and I again think this is another risk, an example of the product of tying your policy to personality rather than to principle. So, to the extent that it was one, thus endeth the lesson. Thanks for tuning in. Please share, like, and subscribe. Uh, put it to the various social media at your disposal, and let me know what you think in the comments below. I think I'm going to have my new article, I hope so anyway, posted, placed in the next day or two, and I will reload that as well when that happens. But in the meantime, thanks for checking in, and we'll see you the next time.